Hi, I'm Eugene Capon. This is a Capon Design tutorial. Today, I'm going to ask you, what were you doing the first time you watched Star Wars? Now, I'm a big Star Wars fan. For this, I got my Star Wars t-shirt on. I got Darth Vader behind me. My mom actually bought that for me. She told me for Christmas she bought me something big, black, and 18 inches long. I'm going to be honest, that was not the first thing I thought of. But anyway, so today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to create the Star Wars opening crawl. So I don't know if you remember, it's a galaxy far, far away. The text comes in. That Star Wars, it looks a little choppy on this because I'm recording on OBS. And then you got all the slanted text coming in. Well, anyway, I'm going to show you how to create that today. And you might be using this for a Star Wars parody you're doing, or you want a Star Wars-like feel for some other project that you're working on. And so I did go through, I sat down beforehand and created everything, so I knew exactly what to do. And so the first thing we're going to do is create a brand new composition. It's going to be 19 by 20 by 1080p. It's going to run for 40 seconds. It'll be a full resolution, 30 frames, square pixel aspect ratio, and we're in. The second thing I'm going to do is create a background. And everybody talks about those three key elements that make up that intro. The blue text, the Star Wars logo, and then the slanted crawl, the yellow slanted crawl. But what everybody always forgets are, it's behind a wall of stars. So I'm going to go up to Layer, New, Solid, get a black composition, or a black layer, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to go over to Effects, and I'm going to look for CC Particle World. I'm going to grab it, drop it onto my layer. Now, if you're looking at this, you can scrub through and see all these particles. They fall down. There's like there's all these like grids and guides, and you know what? I'm just going to go through and remove them all. So I'm going to take away position, radius, motion path, floor, horizontal, and then axis box. And that will bring you back to this very basic black, and you have all your particles coming down. And so what we need to do is to edit them to look like stars. And there is a trick to doing this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the particle itself. Now, let's drop down the particles. We're going to change everything to white. Birth to death. We're going to take the opacity, turn it up to 100%. We're going to keep it as a line. And I know you're like, hey, stars don't look like lines. But it just so happens that if they're completely straight to your vision, they just look like dots. Therefore, faraway stars. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to birth rate. We're going to go to 2 seconds on the layers. I'm going to drop down, go to birth rate, go to 2. I'm going to go to the next keyframe up, move it to 0. And that will actually just stop all the particles from being made. The next thing we need to do is turn on the longevity. I'm going to take it to 60. Now, it doesn't look as strong as it did, but that's perfectly fine. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at the physics. So let's drop down our physics. We're going to take the gravity, turn it to 0. We're going to turn on the resistance to a full 50. And then take the extra, turn it to 0. The extra angle, 0. All the way through. And then we're going to keep explosive. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take a look at the producer. Now, we're going to take the Z radius, change it to 2. We're going to take this radius, change it to 2. And this radius, change it to 2. Now, once we go back to the full preview, you can scrub through it, and there we have our stars. So we're going to go down to the layers. We're going to move this over just a little bit, and then extend. And now we have our stars. Now, over 40 seconds, it's not going to look like it changed very much, which is fine. Barely change. So anyway, the next thing we need to do... Hi, Bubba! Everybody, this is Bubba, my kitty. I love this kid. Hi, buddy. How are you? Mwah. Anyway, I call him Bubba. Not Fett, Beauregard. So, hi, buddy. Love you. Mwah. Alright, there you go. Anyway, let's get back to this. So, the first of the 3 text objects we're going to make is that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So, we're just going to go up here to our text tool. And we're just going to drop in our text. Now, I don't know if you remember, but it actually breaks right there. And there is a special font called Franklin Gothic that we're going to change it to. There we go. Alright, so we have our first text object. Now we have to animate it. And this animation actually makes it so it has to fade in, stay there for a few, like 2 seconds, then fade out. So I'm going to go over to the 5th frame. I'm going to hit the little stopwatch to put down a keyframe. I'm going to move up 15 keyframes to the 20 frame. Turn on another keyframe. Go back to the first keyframe and turn the opacity to 0. We're working with the opacity right now. So now I'm going to move probably 2 seconds down the line to the 20 mark, so it's 220. I'm going to add another keyframe, and then I'm going to go another 15 frames, so it's, since we're working at 30 frames every second, I'm going to go to 305, making it 15 frames, and then turn the opacity back down to 0. And now we have a fully animated text. Okay, the second text object we want to work with is the logo. Now, I pulled the logo just, well, off of the internet. I mean, Star Wars is such a vast brand. You can find the logo pretty much anywhere. So this text object isn't just a fade in, fade out. It's actually moving on a z-axis. So which means we have to turn it into a 3D layer. So I'm coming down to the layers, and I'm turning on this, which is the 3D object. We're making it a 3D layer. Now, I'm going to move the timeline. In the timeline, I'm going to move it so it doesn't even show up until 3:05, or 3 seconds, 5 frames. Go really close, make sure it's there. Now I'm going to add a keyframe in the position. Now I'm going to move down about 7 seconds, or to the 7th second. I'm going to add another keyframe, and now I'm going to, on the Z-axis, I'm going to shrink it, or move it further back. As you can see, it's getting smaller because it's going further away. And then there's just a point where it becomes tedious. So we're going to come back up to this this first frame, and we're going to bring it closer. So close that it actually comes right past us. Now, I'm not going to give you a specific measurement because the logo you might be using might be a different size than mine. So if we scrub through the timeline in the preview, you'll see that it goes really far away. So we can actually help with the transition just a little bit by going back to our layers area, turning on motion blur, and then turning on motion blur for the entire composition. So you need these two both turned on. And now it's going to be just a little bit smoother. And we can actually help with this transition just a little bit more by selecting both keyframes and hitting F9. So it's going to speed up and then slow down. So it's going to be a little bit faster in the center. We can play with this even more by playing with the graph editor. And then we can help the transition just a little bit more by turning the opacity down. So in the last 15 seconds, or 15 frames I mean, I'm going to turn on two keyframes. One where it's 100%, go down to 7 seconds, and turn the opacity off. So it's like it's fading off into space. Actually, I'm going to move it up just a little bit because it is slowing down, and we do want some motion in there. Okay. So we have our first two items. Boom! Star Wars! Okay, the last little bit we need is the vertical text. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a second composition. I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio. It's going to maintain a width of 19 by 20, but the height is going to be 3000. So it's going to be pretty high here. So I'm going to grab this text tool, and I'm going to drop in the yellow text. Let's change it to 52. Now I know it's going to look kind of off. Or maybe a little small, but we can just size it up. Now I have dropped in the specific text that actually was in the movie. I'm going to go back to this composition. I'm going to color pick this yellow. Oh man, where was it? Going to grab the index color hue. Come back over to the composition, and I'm going to make it that yellow color to match the Star Wars logo. Okay, the next thing I need to do is I need to animate this text. So I'm going to put in a position keyframe down at the bottom when you go down to the layers. And then I'm going to move out 30 seconds and put in another keyframe. Alright, I'm going to move up the text all the way through, and then go back to the first keyframe and move it all the way to the bottom. Okay. Now, when we bring in the fourth composition, well, it's 4 for me because I was because I created that first test version. So I'm going to come over, bring it in. All right, we have all this text. So what I'm going to do now is, once the Star Wars is gone, I'm going to slide over the layer to where it starts. And the next part is I'm going to find where it ends. See where the top is? I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm going to put a mask on it. Now, this mask is going to help with the text fading off into the distance. So I'm going to go to subtract down here in the bottom, and I'm going to feather it. What should we feather it up to? I'm going to put 200 on it. Okay, now that we have our mask, we are going to flip it so it's now at an angle. And by doing that, you turn it into a 3D layer, and you go down to orientation. All right, and you type in 290 into the first input value. Okay, now that we've turned the orientation to 290 degrees, we're going to have this, the text is now going to be at an angle. We're going to want to change the position so it's perfectly aligned with the center, and the bars are just touching the corners here. Now as we go through, it will go completely through, and you are ready to render. So how about that? You just went through and created the opening credits to Star Wars. Anyway, I don't think this was a very hard tutorial at all. It was just some basic motion graphics work. Very basic. Anyway, again, I'm Eugene Capon. Thank you for hanging out with me while I do this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you learned something, hit the like button. If you have a comment or suggestion about either this tutorial or a tutorial you would like me to do in the future, leave a comment down below. If you have something negative to say, leave a negative comment down below, and I'm sure somebody from the community will be more than happy to fight you on whatever your beef is. Anyway, if you want more of these tutorials, be sure to hit the subscribe button and I'll just pop up on your YouTube account whenever I make one of these, which I try to do one every single week. Anyway, again, I'm Eugene Capon. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time.